So I wanted to bring up another controversial topic that I know you've been wanting to do a video on for a little while. Um, but this is the topic of free will.
Hmm.
So tell us a little bit about your thoughts on free will.
Free will, man. Free will is tricky. Like free will is, and people hate free will because a lot of people think like they tie that in with specific person type of stuff. But personally, free will is one of those things that I think most people don't really understand it. People like to talk and act like they understand free will, and you hear a lot of Neville Goddard people, followers particularly, they'll tell you that nobody has free will in your reality. You hear them say things like you're God, you control your reality. Nobody has free will. You can get people to do whatever you want them to do. You know what I mean? But personally, me, I don't know if I'm on that side of the fence. I personally don't. I believe we have free will, but I believe we have free will to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Just like I do believe we can control events potentially and people around us in a sense, but I think there's a line where that stops. You see what I'm saying? Like I do believe we are God, we can play God, but I believe that at some point that line stops. Because like for instance, you think about death, right? Like most of us we can't control death. I mean, we could probably control if we wanted to take our own life. We can control that. But we don't know when or how we're gonna die. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But by definition, that has to be included in free will as well, right? Like, if I don't know how or when I'm gonna die, then that means I don't have free will. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, although I've heard free will being talked about as the decisions that you make in your life, not necessarily about the things that happen to you.
Right.
But it seems like you're coming at this issue from a point of um, acknowledging that there's certain things that are going to happen in the universe, whether you like them or not.
Right.
That you have freedom in your brain to control the way you act about these things, but you don't necessarily have control over the thing itself
Outcome.
happening.
Yeah, it's so like I said, free will is one of those things it's one of those things that's very, very tricky in my opinion, because I'm not gonna sit here and pretend to be an expert or pretend to act like I have all the answers. Like, people on YouTube. People on YouTube, in my opinion, they're afraid to say that out loud. They're afraid to admit or act like they don't know the answer to something. I don't have the answer to free will 100% of how free will works. A lot of these people, like I was mentioning a little earlier, like Father Neville Goddard, they will try to preach and talk to you and say to you, oh no, free will is we control our own realities. We control what people do in our realities. We can, like, almost as if it's some like black magic type of stuff. But I do think there is some truth behind that. I do think we could potentially have influence. And I know you and me have had these conversations before where we've talked about you can't get somebody to change. You know what I mean? Like, you can't get a specific person or an ex to change. To some extent, to some degree, I can believe that. But also, too, on the other end, because me being open-minded, I also do believe we can influence a person to change. I do believe that we can have some sort of influence on a specific person to change if we're trying to get them back. It might not be the way that we think that it's going to happen, but I do believe some way, somehow, we can affect that outcome. But that scares a lot of people, because people don't want to be told that free will exists. Because in their minds, if free will exists, that means my specific person won't love me. And that's one of the big fears of people. And that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people shoot down the concept of free will. But like I was saying earlier, we have free will, but I think we have free will to a certain extent. Like, we can't control our reality, but we can control our reality to a certain extent. Meaning, like when disasters happen, you know what I mean? Like, was that in your reality? You know what I mean? Those people that died on 9/11, was that in their reality? Did they think something like that was going to happen to them? Was there a collective consciousness around all of those victims that, oh, I'm afraid? Did all those victims collectively have a consciousness of fear? And so they all were in that building one day, and then boom, they all died. Those 3,000 plus people died because they all had an underlying fear. And so that became their reality that day. Like, these are the types of questions that I don't know if a lot of people really peel back the layers and think and try to answer those questions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So, so you think that ultimately the energy we put out about a situation and our own thoughts about it is, as far as our free will extends, you can't necessarily change somebody else if they don't want to be changed because they're over here having the same free will discussion with themselves. You know, like I can't sit over here and think Marvin's favorite color is blue when you are your own entity over here and you think, no, that's not true. That's not my reality. My favorite color is white.
Yeah.
Right? But no matter how much I think, I'm trying to manifest or create this reality where your favorite is blue, that's not going to be the case for you because you're living and breathing your own reality where, you want something, you like something different than that. So I guess what I'm saying is when free wills of two different people start to clash, you want your SP back, but they don't want you back, or, something along those natures, whose reality is going to win? Or is that part of the fabric that you have to navigate for free will?
Right, exactly.
Sorry if that was a little convoluted there, but, the conversations around free will, I think, inevitably end up being kind of convoluted without
for sure
some concrete examples.
Yeah, for sure. But what I would say to that is, and this goes back to that whole multiverse, thing like we always talked about. And this is something big in the SP community. And the SP community always talks about this. And they always say, there's multiple dimensions out there. There's multiple versions of me. There's multiple versions of you. We get to decide. And everybody always says, I'm going to choose the reality that has my specific person. Right? That's what they always say. They say, I'm going to choose the reality that has me and my specific person together or married or whatever scenario they have played out in their head. But what's not talked about is how many people actually have that working out for them. You know what I mean? Like how many people have changed? How many people have actually 100% gotten their specific person to change if that's what they were trying to do? And how many of them are still successful in this relationship today, however many months or years later, and did it work?
Yeah, you've talked before about, I think it was Drake. I think that was a fun example you gave about Drake. About how many women in the world want to be with Drake. But in his
Drake,
reality...
I'm sorry to cut you off, but Drake's probably... He was trending on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen that. He was trending. I didn't see it, but apparently, there's a video of him out there with his wing out. And everybody's like, oh, now I see what Drake's talking about. Oh, Drake has a baby arm. Oh. So I'm sorry, I just had to put that out there. I'm sure all the chicks out there love that little spill. They probably saw it. I didn't see it.
So in this world, who's getting Drake, if there's 100 different women who are trying to manifest a relationship with him is kind of, where this example is going. Which of these ladies is winning out in this world?
In this world. That's the whole hook. That's the whole key. If there are, and I remember somebody said something to me one time and they were like, everybody gets him. And I'm like, how? In this 3D realm, how does everybody can't get Drake? He's one person in this realm. If there's other dimensions out there, okay, cool. But we're talking about this realm. Who gets Drake? If all these women in the world want Drake, who's going to be the one to get the ring or to get him to say, I'm committed to you? Who's that going to be? And this is where the free will argument comes into play. And I'm saying to people free will, what does it really mean? Because Drake has free will to choose whichever woman he wants to choose. He's not going to choose you just because you've been living in the end of your end scene and saying affirmations like Drake's my baby dad, Drake's my baby dad, Drake's my baby dad. You really think you're going to manifest a relationship with Drake by sitting here walking around saying Drake's my baby dad, Drake's my baby dad, Drake's my baby dad. I'm in a relationship with Drake. I'm in a relationship with Drake. Drake loves me. Drake texts me all the time. Drake wants to marry me. There's people out here really trying to manifest famous people doing shit like this. I know because I've talked to some of them before. It sounds crazy, but people are really out here trying to manifest celebrities and being in relationships with celebrities. People are out here trying to manifest that shit.
And so what should their manifestation be to kind of line up with what you're saying about free will and getting what you want and, really manifesting what's in your heart? What should these people be, affirming to themselves or asking for instead?